Just to welcome you to this, our second community of practice. The last one was held in July. I was just checking actually. So our continuing aim is to encourage and support our international community of assessors through collaboration, and this is much the same as we said last time, networking, information and best practice sharing. And I hope we've been able to achieve some of that during this year. My thanks to you for your attendance today. It's really encouraging in support of achieving this objective. And also participation at this event is your way of confirming your ongoing commitment as an IQA assessor. And of course, we absolutely appreciate that you give your time as volunteers. Please also see it as your opportunity to share with your fellow assessors and perhaps add them to your network if they're not there already. There will be some information sharing today, but it's mainly focused on participation from yourselves and opportunities to ask questions and share findings on a case study. You should have received information on the case study, so hopefully that shouldn't come as a surprise. Also following some feedback from our lead assessors or Alice today, you can also add any feedback that you have participated in this year, both positive and challenging, and for 2025 to think about ensuring continuous improvement. This is one of our 17011 references. I hope you received and appreciated the second newsletter, which was distributed recently. It's a regular communication in between the COP sessions, just to keep you informed of our progress and challenges. Again, if you want to see any topics covered that you would like to see in the future, please let me know, including any experiences with assessments, obviously respecting confidentiality that you'd like to share. Our 2024 programme continues, so please continue to submit your plans. The active tracking of progress will become more formalised in 2025. So we've got a lot to do in 2025, and I'll share just at a high level some of those activities that we're embarking upon. Training we're planning to take place in February, and the 2025 assessment programme will then commence. So hopefully it will start a bit earlier next year to give plenty of time with our objective to complete them all by the end of the year. I appreciate it sounds a long time, but we know in practice that these assessments can take quite a long time. If you've got any questions, please record these in the chat box. Do take advantage of Nick being here. He's also going to continue as our IQA liaison, so that's obviously good news for us. So having said all that, just to let you know the agenda for today, we'll do some introductions. We'll start with those. Nick is then our keynote speaker, and again, officially congratulations to Nick on his new role. He's going to give us an update from the annual conference, and also to outline his two key objectives. So our case study will be based upon objective 2, and yesterday we had quite a lot of good feedback from that, so that will be interesting to hear your feedback also. Some experiences on assessments, both positive and challenging, and just, as I said, a high-level view of what our strategy will be for 2025 in terms of IQA. And please use the chat box for questions and comments. So that's our agenda for today. So let's move on to some introductions. Let me just work around. So if you could give your name, your institute, your years as an assessor, also any CMC expertise this year on assessments. I know at the last COP we went through quite a lot of that, but if you can just think of any recent experiences, that would be great. And if you feel like feeding back, if you receive the newsletter and your thoughts on that, but don't be obliged to do that, just out of interest for you. So Christian, I can see you at the top of my screen, so let's start with you.
Okay, welcome everybody. My name is Christian Welsh-Meegans. I'm born in Argentina. I live in Brazil, represent Brazil in ICMCI. I'm the IQA chair at this moment. I've been an assessor for 5 years now. I've done 4 assessments now, up to date. I've been a CMC since 2003, when we first came into and became a permanent members of ICMCI, when my institute, the Brazilian Institute, became a full member of ICMCI. And I was the vice chair at that moment of my institute. Yes, I received a newsletter. Okay. And I am supporting Sue with and all the assessors. Especially, we are working on leaving all assessors better prepared for assessments, making their work better and easier, and trying to make our assessments more efficient. So I hope that we can talk about that some during the day. Thank you very much.
Lila, can I ask you next, please?
Yeah, my name is Lila Hartman. I'm located in Hungary, so belongs to the Hungarian ICMCI. This is my first year as an assessor. So I involved in an assessment, but it's not started, so this is postponed a little bit. CMC expertise, this is quite an interesting question for me, because when I get the certification, this was 2 years ago, but I'm quite, so I initiated an assessment in 2000, year 2000, yes, but because of some other issues, I didn't get the certification because I went for a maternity leave, and this is why I had no continuous experience and stuff like this. Yes, I got the newsletter and read it through and have no question at this point to the newsletter. Thanks.
Great, thank you. David, I can see you next. David Lee.
Okay, hi. My name is David Lee. I live in Seoul, Korea, and I'm belonging to IMC Korea. So I worked for the co-assessors about 3 years. So I have a 2 experience to assess. And I became a CMC in 2014. So now I'm working as a CMC about 10 years. And I'm receiving a newsletters, IQA. It's a good communication and getting information about the IQA activities. That's all. Thank you.
Great, thank you. And Yosa next, I can see you.
Yeah, hello everybody. My name is Yosa Mulatahiri. I am representing ICMCI in Kosovo. As an assessor, I just started, actually not assessor, co-assessor, and hopefully it will start in time. I just received confirmation from our assessor that the documentation was uploaded. Since I'm here, I just want to indicate one thing, that the documents were uploaded in MS Teams, but I haven't received any confirmation or invitation to access these documents. So maybe this is one thing that we have to solve. With regard to CMC expertise, I've been certified management consultant since 2011. I've also been a trainer and mentor, and also member of a committee while assessing newly trained CMCs in our institute. Yes, I received the newsletter. One comment about newsletter. I am from Kosovo. I think there was a mix between Lila and myself. So I'm from Kosovo and Lila is from Hungary.
Oh,
so this is, yeah, no
my
problem.
apologies.
No, it's okay. It's okay. Yeah.
I'm so sorry. I will correct it.
Yeah, doesn't matter.
Oh, okay, thank you. Okay, Jane, I've got you next.
Hello, everyone. James Healy. I'm from CMC Canada. Years as an assessor. I'm just being onboarded now, but I'm an IQA member. CMC expertise. I guess I've been a CMC since 2004. Served as a institute chair in Canada, as well as on the board and various other things as well. But no, I'm a brand new, sparkling, fresh assessor. Just learning.
Good, welcome. Martin.
Hi, everyone. Great to meet so many new people and see some old friends as well. I am the CMC Chief National Assessor for the Institute of Consulting in the UK. I took over from Nick. Now, Nick will probably remember better than me how many years that was ago. I reckon it could have easily been 20, but I'll stand corrected if Nick jumps in and tells me exactly when it was. CMC, I was actually looking in the background to try and find my CMC certificate. That's probably 20 or more years ago as well. In terms of CMC expertise this year, CMC in the UK has been a little bit quiet. There's been a major focus on chartered management consultant. That's something that has been gaining in traction over the past number of years, and pretty much all the large consultancy houses over here have aligned their internal development programs with that. In terms of my involvement with the ICMCI, I have been a co-assessor for, this will be my third assessment that I'll be participating as a co-assessor. And yeah, looking forward to sharing and learning with you all. In terms of receiving the newsletter, probably, but to be honest with you, if I have received it, I haven't opened it or looked at it yet. I've just been really, really busy.
I'll resend it to you, Martin.
Really appreciate it. Thanks for that.
Alice, you're logged on as me. That's because I sent you my link, but you're here, so that's great. Could you just do some intros from yourself, please?
Okay. My name is Alice Kubicek, and I'm the rep the QAC. Oh my God, QAC, that dates me. The IQA Canada. So that tells you I've been around for quite a long time, because sometimes I just, go back to the wrong terminology. I don't know what my first year was. It was, 15 years. I don't know, something like that. I've lost track. So I am perennially late. I guess that's one of the things that happens when you're retired. You lose track of time. And my expertise this year, I don't know, I'm not quite sure what that question means.
It just means what you've been working on this year, because I know the last COP we did quite a lot of previous experience. So anything new you'd like to share with us?
Okay, well, I've only been working on one assessment this year as a lead assessor. Most of my time has been dedicated to the IQA training and evaluation infrastructure. So, for example, probably that after each assessment, there is an evaluation done of the assessor by the Institute, and then the assessor also assesses the co-assessor, and if there's a 360-degree basically evaluation that takes place. And there is training, and that training will take place sometime in the new year. So that's been my focus this year. And yes, I do receive the newsletter, and thank you, Sue, for all the wonderful work that you do on that. I don't know where you find the time.
Thank you so much. Except I get where people are from wrong, but never mind, we'll overlook that. Thanks, Alice. And Michael, I've got you next.
I'm Michael Kwanashi. I'm with the IMC Nigeria, and I'm still a fresh hand. I'm assisting Alice in the Finland assessment. For this year, that's all I've done. I've just been understudying her. And I think even tomorrow we are going to have a CMC interview of one of the CMC of Finland. Yes, I normally get the newsletter, and I think it's been useful. At this stage, one is still understanding the system, and I'm looking forward to learning more about the whole process of assessing.
Okay, thank you, Michael. And I don't want to leave Kusama out. I made her say something yesterday, so
I heard my name. Yeah. Okay. Hello, everyone. My name is Khuzaima Zaglawan, the Executive Secretary for ICMCI, working with RIMA, the Secretariat, to support the board, the committees, the task force, and all IMCs in the capacity of our position. I joined ICMCI in 2017, and you know us through all the communication we're having with you all. So I hope that will give you a shed light of the work we are doing here as the Secretariat. And for the newsletter, of course, I took note of the newsletter once published. And wishing you a successful session for this day.
thanks, Kusama. And as always, our thanks to Kusama for all the work she does in the background, which helps us to run smoothly with events such as today. So thank you. Otto, I can see you've just joined us.
Yes, sorry for being late.
That's okay. We're just doing some introductions, so the slide is on screen, just a minute or so, just on your institute, years as an assessor, etc.
Oh, okay. So I go next.
Yes, please.
Okay. Well, my name is Oro Acuna. I am located in Costa Rica, in Central America. I am with the CMC Global Institute since 2016, and I have been the professional development chair, and recently the chair of the GI Institute. As an assessor, I started, I believe, in 2020, initially helping Louis as a support assessor, and I have been a lead assessor for the last couple of years. I have already, I would say, five assessments. One of which was as a lead assessor, and the others as support. And I did receive the newsletter. Yes.
Great, thank you. I think I've covered everybody. Yeah, if I haven't, please shout. Just a little bit about myself as well. I'm a member of the UK Institute of Consulting. I've been a CMC since 2000. And again, like Martin, I did have to search around for my certificate, but I have found it and it is on my wall. So that's all good. Also within the UK, I'm a fellow of the Institute and I'm chartered. I also belong to the advisory committee and the task force. As far as ICMCI, I've been a co-assessor since 2020, so I joined the class of 2020, where Alice was doing the training, so I remember her from way back then. Having done 4 assessments now, I'm now an assessor, although I haven't done any assessments this year because being part of IQA and the other responsibilities, I haven't had time to do those. I'm IQA Vice Chair working to Christian, and I'm also responsible for the assessor's operational management. So all of that keeps me quite busy. Okay, so let's move on then. So I'll leave Nick now, is by no means least, but I just thought if he does his intros and I'll stop sharing and you can take over for your presentation, Nick.
Okay, thank you very much, Sue. I guess I should also do a bit of an introduction.
Yeah, exactly.
As you said, I recently became chair of ICMCI, having served on the board for, I don't know, 3 years and a bit. I'm a fellow of the UK Institute of Consulting, As you heard from Martin, Martin and I go back a long way together in the UK Institute. I've been a CMC since sometime in the 1990s when CMC was first established, but the exact date's lost in the mist of time, as is my certificate, the same as Martin's. So yeah, thank you for the opportunity of talking to you today. I'm actually going to start by being a little bit philosophical, if you don't mind, in what I'd like to say, because I've been reading a couple of books on the web of life. In fact, you know, how life exists and how it all started and how it develops. And one of the things that I have come to understand in reading that literature is that organizations, very much like creatures and plants in nature, are living organisms. So I see ICMCI as a living organism. In nature, organisms need internal substance and stability and an external ability to change. So I think it's the same with ICMCI. We need an internal stable structure combined with the fluidity of change. In other words, we need to be sustainable and at the same time agile. And I have two goals in mind for my 3 years in office as chair, one of which is more of an internal goal, which is to build and maintain our ICMCI family so that all members can thrive and prosper. And when I say ICMCI family, I really mean ICMCI as a family. And families stick together, families support each other, family members, and the ICMCI is a family of members. We have member institutes, we have the consultants within those institutes, we have committees and task forces, and we have hubs. And what I would like to foster within ICMCI is a real spirit of community and family values and family belonging so that we can all do better together. And that's going to take a lot of work, but and a lot of time and effort and volunteering time and effort as well. So goal 2 is more external, and so my other goal is for ICMCI to build external relationships with other stakeholders in our profession to increase the recognition of ICMCI, to make us recognized as the advocacy voice of the profession, and to have our standards of competence and ethical behavior and robust process in ISO 20700 more universally adopted across our profession, but also across the marketplace as well, so that CMC consultants become more preferred by consultancy buyers when they go out to engage consultancy suppliers. So 2 very high-level goals, but there are more details behind them which are expressed in the 2030 aspirations which were outlined at the annual meeting last October. And I've split those 13 aspirations between the 2 main goals that I have in mind. So in terms of our sustainable and stable growth, achieved a joined up community with a culture of belonging and commitment. Now, all living organisms require fuel of some sort or other. in order to survive. Plants take their energy from the sun and from the soil and from water. ICMCI currently takes most of it, if not all of its energy, from volunteers and from members. But if we are going to grow the way I perceive us and have a vision for us to grow in ICMCI, we need much more of the other energy source for ICMCI, which is money. So another main aspiration is to build robust and bigger revenue streams. One element which contributes to this will be building a more effective donor-related strategy so that we can take money from donor funding for the work we do. Another will be the ICMCI Services Inc., a new commercial arm about which I'll talk a bit more later, contributing a significant revenue stream. And part of Services Inc. is our new ICMCI Academy, which is not yet in operation, but is in the middle of building the business plans. Again, providing global training courses that will bring in revenue both for the people who design and publish the courses, but also for IMC member institutes, as well as IMC itself. And then the other two things which go together to build our growth will be enhancing the visibility and value proposition of the CMC award, so it becomes much more recognized and accepted as the gold standard for consulting. And then not just having member institutes in countries, but making ourselves available, being a presence in as many countries of the world as we can, so that people get to know us, get to know what we stand for, and get to engage with what we're aiming to do. So the other set of aspirations fit more in terms of external activities of ICMCI. Firstly, to build a strong relation with the consulting industry. That is the big consulting firms who are more commercially based than ICMCI, but still are major stakeholders in the profession, obviously. And I want to make sure that we can work together with them to improve the reputation of our profession, make us stronger, and maybe make some developments for the future which will secure better and better enforced ethical standards and levels of competence amongst consulting community. So being recognized by a sufficient number of industries and governments, obviously this is all part of us being much more of the advocacy voice of the profession worldwide. And also having our methodology understood and recognized, specifically in terms of our support for the UN Sustainable Development Goals and societal responsibility, which is now becoming a major part of consulting work and a major part of ICMCI's move in terms of our vision and mission for the future. Very specific to this community is expanding IQA to accredit other certification bodies. This is something which will be a natural follow-on to the work that we've started to do with UNIDO in Ghana, about which I'll talk a bit more in a minute. And then a fond hope of mine is that at some stage we will see some form of self-regulation in our profession. And I'd like to see that we can find some tangible steps towards that over the next few years. Things are happening in Australia, which some of you may be aware of already, that could be a springboard into this, as an inquiry within Australia is beginning to make recommendations about regulating the profession, at least in Australia. So we may have some moves already afoot. So those are my two main goals, and how they work out in the aspirations. Each of those aspirations will have an action plan built around it, and we'll be making those known as soon as we've got something concrete established. So what have we got going on already in terms of achieving some of those goals? Well, I mentioned ICMCI Services Inc. Again, this is very new, still in development. And we've only had one sort of revenue earning contract within Services Inc. so far, but there will be plenty more. And the idea of this new legal entity, which has been established in Delaware in the US, this is for sort of governance and taxation purposes that we're there. This body will enable us to actually undertake commercial operations that will not get in the way of our independent professional standard as standing as ICMCI, but it will give us the opportunity of selling services and the opportunity of getting revenue in a much easier way than revenue coming into ICMCI itself. It's a much more fluid route for revenue to come in. And part of Services Inc. will be the Global Academy, which will be delivering absolutely top level consulting related capacity building courses, various modules. We will obviously start with our ISO 20700 training, but there'll be many more modules coming on, and there'll be opportunities for member institutes and people within member institutes and for instance, academic fellows to actually provide training modules that we can disseminate through the Global Academy. And like I said before, there are revenue opportunities for everybody from the Global Academy and Services Inc. Consultants, member institutes, and ICMCI. So business plans for both those organisations currently being finalised, and look for new announcements coming through as they develop. Our project with UNIDO, not just a project, but actually a collaborative partnership with UNIDO, which has started with a pilot project to train and certify 16 consultants in Ghana who are specifically engaged in the agribusiness industry, but the collaboration with UNIDO will extend into all industry sectors and in fact into all countries of operation where UNIDO operate, which includes 9 more countries in Africa. And this collaboration will develop over the years and will provide opportunities for people within ICMCI member institutes to get involved and undertake projects. So there are opportunities on a wide basis for this. At the moment, we are just beginning the capacity building exercise with the consultants, designing the training materials. There will be an on-site training module taking place at the end of January, which will be run by Chelal, who is head of our Professional Development Standards Committee and Marina Pogosyan, who is one of our member consultants based in Armenia. And Marina was chosen as one of the trainers because she has a very wide experience of training within the EBRD training program that took place until COVID actually put an end to that particular consultant training. So again, watch this space for developments on the Ghana project. We, apart from the training, we are also developing a certification scheme specifically for UNIDO consultants, which will be very much like our own CMC certification scheme, but especially adapted for the UNIDO situation. And eventually, it is planned that we will also be developing local certification bodies to actually certify against this certification scheme, the Certified Enterprise Management Consultant, as it's known. And then, of course, there will be an opportunity for IQA to be accrediting those member institutes when they or certification bodies, whatever they become. In the meantime, of course, there's going to be certifications to take place, which will be the responsibilities of the assessors within Global Institute. So, you know, a lot of work going on and a lot of work shared amongst some of our members in ICMCI. Following on from the annual conference, where we made contact with one of the speakers from the International Trade Center, which is another UNIDO organization alongside, another United Nations organization alongside UNIDO. We are entering into some sort of partnership and collaboration with ITC based on sustainability, and particularly sustainability in supply chains. So that's another development taking place as part of our reaching out to make partnerships with other stakeholders in the profession and industry. We will be renewing our relationship with EBRD. In fact, we are now in close contact with the people in EBRD to talk about consultant training beyond the ISO 20000 training we were doing into the wider range of consultancy training, maybe even certification, we don't know yet, but these are discussions that will begin to take place right now with EBRD. So again, a lot of opportunities beginning to happen there, and another external relationship being built. Steps to IQA independence and full IAF membership. Of course, we recognized IQA already as an independent accreditation body, but in order for full recognition of this internationally, we do need to move to more formal international recognition as well. And this can only really happen by going for full membership of the International Accreditation Forum. Now, work has been going on in this already, and there are some steps we have to follow, which I think most people are aware of, but just to reiterate, the first thing is that we have to find a way of joining a regional accreditation group, which are based on the continents around the world. There's an Asia Pacific group, a European group, an Americas group, a Middle East group. And we unfortunately can't join the European group, even though we as ICMCI are registered in Europe, because the European Union rules prevent any other accreditation bodies being formed or recognized other than one single national accreditation body per country. So we're going to have to find a way of joining another regional group somehow. This may mean registering IQA as an entity in another country membership of a group. That's under investigation at the moment. And then having done that, we would undergo, or IQA would undergo, a peer assessment by members of that group. And after being successful, would sign what's known as an MLA agreement with the International Accreditation Forum, and could become a full member. A long, long way to go, a lot of obstacles to overcome, but we are determined to achieve that somehow, so that IQA wins the recognition and the status that it deserves in the world of certification. Okay, what more can be done apart from all these things? Well, there are a lot of potential initiatives that can be undertaken, and action plans and initiatives that can be put forward. So you have a case study, which I think comes next, which is to help identify some of the things that you can recommend that can be done specifically to build our external relationships, to increase the recognition of ICMCI, to help us become the advocacy voice of the profession, and to help our standards of competence and ethical behaviour and robust process become more acceptable across the profession and in the marketplace among consultancy buyers. So that's really all I have to say for today in terms of what I'm hoping we'll achieve and the particular goals and aspirations I believe we should be following over the coming years. So happy to take any questions or any comments, positive or negative.
I've got two questions on the chat.
Let me have a look in the chat box.
Yeah, from I'll read them out. From James, I missed the
okay. So we've gone through a discussion with UNIDO as to what we should call the certification. At the end, we came up with the name of Certified Enterprise Consultant. They were very keen that whatever we did should have a very clear ICMCI presence. One of the things that attracted UNIDO to ICMCI was actually our standards of competence and code of conduct. And so they're very keen to have ICMCI as at the forefront of whatever they do. They wanted to actually use the term CMC within the certification, and we quite rightly said, no, sorry, that's not possible, because CMC is a very specific protected award. And so because these consultants are going to be working with local enterprises, we came up with the title of Certified Enterprise Consultant, or CEMC. So that will be the certification name, and the name of the scheme will be the Certified Enterprise Consultant Scheme.
Okay,
right. Is that a good enough answer for you, Jamie?
Yep, that's great. Thanks, Nick. I just missed the name, that's all.
Yeah, yesterday, how do we as IQA become involved with future planning, for example, UNIDO sustainability? Well, two things. One is that whenever a new certification scheme is developed, one of the requirements is that all stakeholders have to be consulted. And as far as we're concerned with this UNIDO scheme, the recognised stakeholders are, of course, UNIDO, of course, ICMCI. Within ICMCI, the Professional Development and Standards Committee, and in fact, it will be the PDSC who will officially publish this certification scheme because it's their responsibility for doing that. But another main stakeholder is IQA, because at some point IQA will be accrediting certification bodies who are certifying to CEMC. And it could be that some of those bodies will also want to become accredited for ISO 17024 certification as well. So that's the first way that IQA will become involved, being a stakeholder and being consulted about the scheme. The scheme is almost completed in draft form. It needs to be discussed and agreed with UNIDO first and foremost, and then we start talking to IQA specifically about the scheme, and then depending on feedback we get, we go back to UNIDO and suggest any changes that IQA want to recommend to us, and the process will iterate that way. And then secondly, of course, in the course of time, there will be the accreditation work to undertake for future certification bodies who may or may not become member institutes or like sort of affiliated bodies with ICMCI.
And what about sustainability, Nick? Because whatever you decide at ICMCI level, obviously we need to be conscious of and feed that back down through our assessments with the IMCs.
You mean in terms of sustainability from a UN SDG?
Yeah. I mean, I know we've covered that already, and we did a case study on it. But if you're working to specific tasks and plans around that, it's just that we're conscious of those again, because it is one of the things we need to pick up next year with our IMCs.
Well,
we have
yes,
it is included as part of our assessment, but we need to put more emphasis on it, if you like.
Well, yeah, very definitely. I mean, sustainability is well built into our code of conduct, and also into the competence framework. So I do think that that's actually going to be quite a major element of assessment, accreditation assessment for the future. And I've been a little bit exercised lately because of some of the things that have been going on in terms of how much attention is paid by IQA assessors to the codes of conduct being employed by member institutes, in terms of equivalence with the ICMCI sort of model code of conduct. I know there's very close equivalence check on the competence framework, and I think we need the same level for code of conducts that are employed by the institutes as well. I'm sure it's already done, but maybe even more attention, and as you say, particularly the elements of, I would say, sustainability and social responsibility, and also elements to do with ethical behavior in terms of, let's say, confidentiality, client confidentiality, anti-bribery and things like that, where we are seeing quite a number of instances, certainly not within ICMCI member institutes, but elsewhere, of these sort of things being quite prevalent within the industry at the moment. Christian, you have your hand raised.
Yes, Nick, I want just to comment on the name of the certification for UNIDO consultants.
Yeah.
In Portuguese and Spanish, when there's not a perfect translation for management consultant. So many times they're called, making it back into English, enterprise consultants.
Ah, okay, yeah, yeah.
Okay, consultores empresariais.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, so this will be confusing in Spanish spoken and Portuguese spoken countries. Okay, just take that into account.
Okay, yeah. That is a point I will take back to UNIDO. So thank you for that, Christian. I'm not sure that there's anywhere a universally accepted definition of management consultant anyway.
We've just finished to translate ISO 2700 to Portuguese, and it is being recognized as an official standard by the Brazilian institute that recognizes accreditation body. Okay, and we had a lot of problem with the translation of management consultant.
Yeah, okay.
A lot of discussions, a lot of problems there. We got to we had to negotiate a lot, but it really will bring some problems if you don't take care of that. Okay?
Yeah, okay, I understand. And again, I know there are a lot of people that are unhappy with the term management consultant anyway, because a lot of consultancy which could be construed as management consultancy really could be better described as business consultancy, or in other words, enterprise consultancy. Yeah, I mean, we're getting into the realm of semantics, but it would be as well to get it right from the start. And I think if there is an issue in certain languages, then we need to make sure UNIDO is aware. And it could be, as you say, it could become an issue for them. So I will make a note of it, and yeah, watch this space.
James says he likes the Spanish Portuguese term better than management consultant. So
Yeah.
Not much, James. The name in Portuguese, it's consultor de organização, organization consultant. That nobody understands what that means, okay?
I'm just saying it sounds better when you say it, that's all.
Yeah. Oh, it sounds much more romantic in Portuguese.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. Any other questions? Otherwise, I think it's time you got on with the case study.
Indeed. Okay. Thank you so much, Nick. That's really good. And also continuing as our board liaison, you know, we'll pose a lot more questions to you, I'm sure, over time. So thank you.
I'm ready.
Good.
At least not too many early morning meetings.
No. Okay, I'll go back to
okay, listen, I'm going to move on, but if there is anything else you need me for during the course of the session, just give me a bell and I'll rejoin.
Okay. All right, will do. Thank you so much.
Okay, thanks. Bye, everybody.
Okay, let me go to the slide. So based upon what Nick has shared with us, I also added it, and Alice mentioned it actually, it's the how and the who. So this is the statement. So you can read this, but if you could, and what we'll do, we'll take a few minutes and have a break to consider this, but if you could look at this within perhaps your own IMC and provide your feedback, keep it to roughly 5 minutes or whatever. So it's who should we target to build relationships with to meet this objective? How can we build these relationships? What is the approach? And by taking 1 and 2 forward, how can we further use this thinking to increase CMC membership and accreditation? We know with the assessments we do with the IMCs, it's one of their objectives to increase membership. And in a lot of cases, membership has been falling. So if you can take that into account as well. The key messages that came out of yesterday were collaboration, communications, and marketing. So there might be 3 headings that you want to think about. So what I suggest we do, it's on the hour now. If we take, say, 10 minutes, so take a break, have a read through this, give it some thought, and then we'll come back and we'll work round and gain your feedback. So I'll leave it with you, 10 minutes. Thank you. So James, I can see you first if you'd like to give us your feedback on this this case study.
Yeah, I think so. I think the approach that we're using here in Canada is predominantly to focus on 2 main groups. One is higher learning, so universities, business programs, maybe not specifically, but inclusive. Engineering programs, funny enough, but in the academic world, but also to connect with influential medium to large consulting firms, as well as leadership within influential medium to large, medium meaning probably 250 or 300 consultants plus, and large obviously being the players we all know, and then probably lastly to go after some. I know I said 2, but the third one is to go after some influential customers. And the way that we're looking at that is we're actually going after a federal government predominantly, as well as some of the provincial governments, because for 2 reasons. One is that's where we've seen the most egregious social impact of poor ethical behavior in management consulting, because it's so public, and it's a great opportunity for us to lead by example. So I would say those are the ones that we're targeting and going after.
Okay, any thoughts on how that will help to increase membership?
Yeah, so I mean, it depends on how you look at membership. So obviously it doesn't increase institute membership because we're focused on Canada. But broadly, I mean, if there's a groundswell of momentum in the world in various hotspots, I think other countries will obviously see the advantage of being part of a network, a federation of institutes that have a consistent set of not just ethics, and I think that's great, and we need that, and that's one of our biggest selling points, but also our competency model, other knowledge items. I think there's a number of things that we bring to the table that are unique value to other countries as well. But in terms of increasing the global certified management consultant base, we're looking at doing that through those relationships.
Okay, thank you, James. Christian, I can see you next.
For what it's worth, I see Otto's got his hand up.
Oh, okay, Otto, you've got a question?
No, I was actually based upon to provide feedback, but go ahead, let Christian start, and whenever we start commenting about these 2, let me know.
Okay.
Okay, then. This question comes up is raised many times in almost all of our annual meetings. So how to give a focused answer. I think that the main thing is that we are not being good in developing our brands. The brand of the IMC and the brand of ICMCI. And these brands should be developed by supported on 3 distinguished things that ICMCI gives to consultants. One of them is global networking. The second one is ethics. And the third one is expertise in consulting, which should be supported in results. Better results due to expertise in consulting. So the brands being developed through this, then the management consultants will start appearing and will start being seen more. And how, of course, that relating to universities, relating to government agencies, related to commercial associations and industries are means to develop the brand and to make the brand being known. But the focus should be in developing a brand, because it is not easy to develop a brand first. You will need professional support to develop a brand, and it doesn't bring immediate results. It brings results in the middle and long term, and we have not really started to do that. So this is where I think that we should focus on in developing brand. What should we do in ICMCI, and how do we support the IMCs to develop both brands, ICMCI's and the IMC's brands? That's it.
Okay, thank you, Christian. Yeah, I can see there are two objectives there, both for our own IMCs, but also within ICMCI as well. Otto, I can see you now. So,
Okay. I wanted to share what we are doing, circumstantially. CMCGI is tasked with covering the wide areas of the world. So trying to expand has been part of our DNA since we were created by ICMCI. So I wanted to share what we are trying to do, or what my plans are, even though I am finishing probably soon next year my term as chair of GI, but this links with a initiative that I am trying to do with the Spanish-speaking parts of the world, and perhaps this can help this objective. Let me share. We initially created what we called geographical chapters, or GI geographical chapters. Right now, and it took a long time, but basically the idea was to partner with people that were located physically in some of the areas where we didn't have physical presence, but that there were either a member of our institute, or people who had the reach locally, but and was interested in becoming a member. So we have done, I won't go into the details, but we have two programs, one for internal type of members, and another one more strict for external organizations that can give us traction in those areas of the world where we are not located. So we piloted this year with Egypt which is run by one of our members, and it is the CMCGI Egypt chapter, which opens with allow people, it has mostly training, but it allows to start building a community of people interested in management consulting within Egypt, and with a local person that can oversee the relationship in that. And we are trying to set up something more or less similar in Saudi. Now, and this has worked well and has produced members for GI that are already trained in the Management Consulting Essentials. But that approach, has worked well there. Now, for next year, what I am trying to do, and I'll speed up to avoid taking too much time on my intervention. The other thing is I am trying to set up kind of an association for the Spanish-speaking parts of the world, which will be linked as a geographical chapter in GI for the Spanish-speaking areas of the world, which is a big white chunk. One of the strategies that as I think I will set up initially is to go to the chambers of commerce, many of which have either industry chapters or industry groups or things like that, and try to co-chair or co-form with them an industry. The idea is an industry chapter in that commerce and industry association that would foster ISO 2700. Now, going to IQA, I'm just wondering if part of what could be done is to have IQA develop a type of program or less certification, much in the way that UNIDO is working it, for external associations or external chambers that want to have their own, let's say, industry chapter local, but within the standards of the world, which are, of course, ICMCIs. So I don't know if I make sense with all this, but I think this could be an interesting idea to take forward in order to start pinging the different actors and stakeholders of the world about the standards and becoming more prevalent on the brand that Christian just mentioned. That was it. I hope I made sense.
Thanks, Otto. Christian, do you have any, from the IQA perspective, do you have any comments on that?
On the IQA perspective, what we contribute is to create value to the brand by reinforcing the standards. But this is not the issue here. The issue here is how somebody wanting to hire a consultant knows and trusts that he will find a consultant in the IMC.
Yes.
When somebody, when a manager in an organization wants to hire a consultant, what's the first thing he thinks of? The big five, the big consultancies.
Correct.
And most of the managers don't even know that there exists an organization like ICMCI or the IMCs around which he can find excellent consultants. So we need to make these guys aware that we exist. And that is the problem. That is why I think that the focus should be branding. Okay?
I fully agree, because at the end, much of the impulse that we have had has been on the supply side. And we need to focus, which I believe is what you're saying, we need to focus the marketing of the brand in the demand side.
Okay. But then, just to complement, you cannot develop a strong brand if you don't have a strong product. That is why we need to we keep on working and improving our certification schemes, our designations, the training, and all of that. That will support the strong brand, but it's not enough. you need communication, you need marketing there.
Alice, you've got your hand up.
Yes, I do. And I will take it down now before I forget. Okay, I agree with what's being said, and I agree that it has to come from both the supply and demand. It's got to be, you know, stress from both sides. You know, the pressure has to be there from both sides. But I think that, you know, it depends on the country, and I agreed with what Jamie was saying in terms of where we have as a national IMC, if you will, even though we have, you know, provincial institutes, you know, focused on certain things. We have the way that government, for example, goes looking for management consultants. They don't go and think of the big five, for example. You have, as a consultant, you have to register on their you have to be on their registry, and then they send out an RFP, a request for proposal, to everyone that's on that registry. And you could be one of the big five. You could be like a little boutique independent, and then you have to compete on that basis. There is no guarantee that you or anyone else is going to get it. What we need to do in instances like that, we need to make the CMC the preferred designation for management consulting, but they're not aware of it. And if you go on their application process, they will identify, for example, in a drop-down menu, you know, what are your credentials? And rarely do you see CMC on that list. You'll see, you know, engineers, you'll see lawyers, you'll see doctors, you'll see all sorts of things, but you rarely see a CMC as a preferred designation for the services to be provided. And I think there's a reason for that. One of the reasons for that is that we're not a regulated profession. And this is the value proposition that consultants who want to be management consultants don't understand, and suppliers who want to hire management consultants don't appreciate. If you're not a regulated profession, then anyone can call themselves a management consultant. And there's no pushback from anyone on whether or not they're going to be competent or not competent. There's no consequence for incompetency. There is no standard for how they manage their consulting projects. So it's really a free-for-all. If you're regulated, then you have to abide by a code of ethics. You have to abide by certain standards. You have to ensure that the services you're providing are not contrary to what the regulation or the regulatory legislation expects of you. And that way, you know, the supplier is saying, well, you know, I'm going to be better protected if I hire this individual because they've got their credential. The credential is regulated through legislation. So I am assured that if there is some incompetence demonstrated, I have somewhere to go to complain. Now that's, you know, that's like after the fact, but regardless, there is a certain element of protection I believe that suppliers feel. By the same token, individuals who want to be management consultants will then be identified as separate from the rest of the pack because they come with a designation that also promotes and indicates, hey, I have the power and the strength of the designation behind me. I'm obligated to provide a service through my professional designation. And you can measure my performance. If you have a complaint, here's the process by which you can complain. Here is, you know, we are a body that regulates our profession so that we can protect the client and we can protect the consultant. So that is not something that's obvious in terms of, you know, how do we build relationships and who should we target? It's more of a, you know, we had here in Ontario, we had an evening on the Hill, which basically was management consultants had organized a meeting with some of the the government bureaucrats on Parliament Hill. for one evening, so that there was an interaction, a communication, a developing of a relationship. And since that time, our executive director for the Ontario Institute has been asked to sit on an advisory committee with them. So these are the sorts of things that we need to do. We need to promote our profession, going beyond the obvious, going beyond that, well, let's try to court the big five, or let's, you know, put some advertisements in here. We need to approach it more from a very professional perspective, saying, hey, we are one of a kind. We are obligated to do the service for you. If you hire us, you are protected. Unfortunately, they are not protected because we don't have that regulatory body behind us. This is the value proposition I believe would be effective for both the suppliers and the other group. You were supplying the service, the other people are buying the service, the buyers and the suppliers. That's the way I would focus. That's where I would put my focus if I were to, you know, be in charge of this. That's it.
Thanks, Alice. Thanks, Alice. I think in some countries you can't call yourself a management consultant unless it's regulated. I believe that's the case in Switzerland, for example, but I think there's probably a few countries that applies in, but it does exist. So, but you're right, it would be good to adopt that in many other IMCs, many other countries. So thank you. Okay, I'd like to move on then to Vjosa. I can see you next.
Yeah, with regard to who we should target in order to build our relationship, I would say, apart from chambers of commerce, we also should target sector-specific associations, like promoting our services to them. And I completely agree with Alice. We should be like ICMCI should be the seal of quality, ensuring that whoever is coming as a consultant, a certified consultant from ICMCI, then ICMCI is ensuring the quality, but at the same time monitoring them. So then there is a door, as Alice explained, there is a door to complain if services are not being provided, and if somebody recommends them, this is the problem. Then ICMCI should take the responsibility over its consultants, and this also ensures that not everybody is certified. So whoever, once you certify management consultants, then you have to be very, very keen in ensuring that also the certification is given to consultants that really have excellent experience. So it's a chain of quality assurance. The other thing that I agree with Kristen is we need to build a brand. And in order to build a brand, we need to ensure the quality of our services. Promote our services, but also advocate. When I say advocate, I think for Kosovo mostly, how we can increase our reputation is to ensure that in our government, whenever they have the big tendering process, to put management consultant as a consultant that will ensure the management, the monitoring, and ensure quality of whatever the tender will be. So even if it's if it has to do with the engineering, if the engineer is there, also to ensure that the engineer is certified management consultant, knows all the processes, knows codes of ethics. This will definitely increase the reputation of CMCs. And of course, also will increase the need for membership. And the other thing in Kosovo that we tried to do was working with National Qualification Authority and actually we developed standards because there are no standards for CMC. They requested us, we developed the standards according to their requirement in order to make CMC as a profession, to be accepted as a profession. But then, of course, National Qualification Authority left it. I mean, there were changes in the structure, and of course, then there were changes also in the structure of BCC and our institute. So it kind of remained unfinished. This, but maybe as one initiative that we can do, I don't know in other countries how it is, but in Kosovo, we don't have any quote for management consultants. I know in Canada, I think it's accepted as, it has a code for profession, but in Kosovo, we don't have it. So this could be one thing that we can do. And maybe for, in our case in Kosovo, we are going to need the support from IQA, support from International Institute, so that it's kind of a, even when we advocate with our government, and especially maybe this is valid to for other countries, have a meeting with government institutes so that to ensure that we have your back, for example, the institutes in smaller countries. So to ensure that it's not only institute in local level, but there is also institute in a global level, in international institute that actually is ensuring the quality. So this can increase the reputation. And then let's say in national level, we will promote it in national level, and then in global level, of course, I mean, then it's networking, that maybe we can do, and I mean different type of activities that we can do in order to promote. It could be like, let's say, once in Kosovo to organize a meeting with all businesses, invite different institutions, but also have guests from other countries. Institutions from other countries, and same to happen in, I mean, kind of to go with the rotation. So this was more or less, yeah.
Thank you so much. That's yeah, it's really interesting to listen to all these different points of view, which are specific to where we are. So thank you. David, I've got you next.
Yes, thank you. So I'd like to say about the Korean management consultant. In Korea, we have a nationally recognized management consultant. So it means Korea government regulated about the consultant performance and ethical behavior. And so it's Korea government is tightly control the national recognized management consultant. So in Korea is a CMC brand is not much recognized. So it's a little bit difficult because IMC, CMC, and the Korea recognized management consultant. It's a Korea recognized management consultant. We have nearly 18,000 consultant. So in Korea, ICMC, CMC brand is not so much recognized. So in Korea, it's very little bit difficult to be recognized by business sectors. So James Hillis bring the PMP is a certificate. So is PMP certificate is recognized, I believe, about 156 countries, but in our ICMC, CMC, is about just 53 countries. So I am thinking if we have a so good manual like a PMP, we can develop some more higher management consulting brand. So that's my ideas. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you, David. And Michael, I can see you next. Thank you.
Okay, I think in many societies where you have deficiency in skills, there's always an attempt to focus on critical skills in society. And the government plays a very central role in this promotion. The government, by setting out the guidelines in which people are employed, how areas where people should go into and what they do, they play quite a significant role. So it's important to partner with government. It's important for advocacy on the political level, on the legislative level, on institutional level, to be strengthened. Let the role of management consultancy be appreciated. So I think that advocacy is necessary. The CMC must collaborate, must reach out to these institutions and try to promote the brand as it has been suggested. But generally, I think it's important to mainstream the whole concept of management consultancy into the skills development process in the country, probably, starting from the educational system. I think curriculum, we should try to influence curriculum, we should try to influence what we teach, and then let's catch them young. Let people come out the system, no matter what field you are, engineering, and even law, whatever it is. I think there should be an effort to mainstream this whole concept of management consultancy and build it into not just the recognition, of its importance in driving development, but also for maintaining the strategic objective of management consultancy worldwide. So I think that advocacy is very, very important. In government policy, there's always, unlike the well-developed countries, government gets involved to a very large extent in policy extension. I mean, it's so critical, not just in the institution of government, not just the institutional structure of policy, but in policy extension. And I think the role of management consultants in many of these countries are not fully appreciated. I think the IMC, for example, in Nigeria, should probably develop the capacity to influence that process. I like what the Ghana experience with the UNIDO is. I think one is inspired by that. I think not just UNIDO, the local IMCs should also work with most of the international organizations that are involved in extension and project extension to downstream targets, and a lot of pressure and advocacy to make them realize that is a critical skill that is required for them to be successful. And if programs like this is built, not just with UNIDO, with UNDP, with virtually all those agencies that operate quite widely in countries like us, there should be conversation with them, explaining what this whole stuff is all about, and encouraging them in their selection process to begin to identify that as a skill that is required, for skills development for their programs. I think that will help. I think basically, for me, the educational system, the skills development system, the capacity building system, and all the agencies and institutions are involved with that, starting from legislation, to promoting extension work, policy extension work to the lowest level. I think those are the sort of focus that I think in countries like us will actually bring management consultancy to the fore, and with the support of big companies that are involved in big projects that have to recruit consultants, advocacy with them, and advocacy with the government itself, I think will promote. Right now, the expansion of management consultants in Nigeria actually is driven by the fact that it is a requirement that enhances progress in many sectors in Nigeria. I think that's why people are registering. People are willing to get involved because there's some recognition that that is a qualification for something within the system. And I think the IMC Nigeria should continue to push that line and increase that interest, general interest, in IMC.
Thank you,
Thank you. I'll
Michael.
stop here.
Thank you. Thank you all so much for that. There's certainly some messages that we can take back in terms of IQA. I've also asked Nick to make sure that he looks at the recordings and listens to all your feedback as well, so we don't lose that, because it's valuable input that you've given us today. So thank you so much for your time in looking at that case study and giving us your feedback. It's great. Thank you. Okay, I'd like to move on then. This next slide is from Alice. So I will hand over to her and ask her to go through these for us. I've put one question at the bottom here, is how we can address the challenges. So that's perhaps not for today, but something that we need to think about. So I'll hand over to you, Alice, if that's okay.
Thank you, Sue. So we thought it would be interesting for as assessors to share some of the positive and not so positive experiences that we've had with our assessments. And I'm sure some of you who have had at least one assessment could probably relate to at least one of the positives and one of the challenges. So I'm not necessarily going to talk about examples for everyone, specific examples, but I just wanted to lay out the experience that I've had over the many years and where I've felt that it was the assessment was a great success. And on the other hand, some of those assessments that ended up being successful, but where I found that there were some challenges along the way. So let's start with the positive. So, where it's been the most satisfying assessment is when you start with the respectful interaction with the IMC. And it's not necessarily that you're doing anything special, it's just that the IMC respects the need for the assessment and respects you as much as you bring that to the table. And once you start off on that foot, of course, it's going to be a positive thing. And I think more than not, that has been my experience. One of the things that we often, maybe not enough, but particularly now more so, is when the INC comes with a complete package already done. They've looked at the manual, the CMC 001 manual, and they've aligned their the requirements and what they've been able to accomplish to that manual. So that makes it so much easier. So part of that's an education process to help the IMC get to that point. I've had IMCs that were so eager to comply and they went out of their way to meet all the requirements immediately, even when it's been a face-to-face. So, they, instead of saying, okay, well, we'll get to that, how much time do we have? They actually would go rushing back to make sure that they had everything. And that really tells you that, this is an IMC that is very committed to compliance because they understand the importance of it. other positive experiences have been IMCs who really want to go beyond the assessment itself, and they want to talk about what are some of the best practices that they can adopt and how they can improve as a IMC. They recognize that maybe they have their own challenges, but they want to hear from you in terms of your experience. So helping to move the conversation towards that can be satisfying for both the IMC and you as the assessor, because you're lending some value added. Good financial and governance controls. I haven't had really any issues around the financial, but you know, most IMCs, I must say, are very concerned about their financial situation. So they try to institute some really good controls, but governance sometimes, and we'll talk about that in the next column. Succession planning, where we know that we're all volunteers, and not every IMC has an executive director or a staff member who's the holder of the information. And before we had the secretariat, in fact, a lot of this information was lost. So where IMCs have a succession planning process in place where they say, okay, this is the package that we submitted 3 years ago. Here you go, new volunteer. Make sure you keep this in a safe place, because this is the package that you'll be expected to provide going forward. Where institutes have had that in place, things have really been smooth. And thinking outside the box. We just had a really good conversation about how we can recruit new CMCs, and there are some IMCs who, you know, are staying sort of to the very, oh, well, you know, we're going to have recognition night, or we're going to have, like, you know, we're going to go to the schools, but there's others who really are trying to think outside the box, like maybe chambers of commerce, as someone mentioned, or going to other associations. So IMCs who do that, also it bring a positive experience to the assessment, because they're prepared to share that information and to improve themselves and others. If only that could be always the case, because some of the challenges that are beyond our control and beyond the control of the IMC is political and other upheavals. In IMCs where there is obviously challenges just on the ground politically, forget about management consulting, that can delay the assessment to the extent that I had one which was delayed for 3 years. So this is not ideal, of course, but there's not much you can do about that. I mean, they're just trying to survive. They're just trying to, you know, keep their head above water. So this is probably the last thing on their mind. I've had another IMC that didn't understand why standards were so important, and they felt it was, you know, they were in control of their own house, and they didn't feel that they needed to comply with international standards. I believe it's because they didn't understand what the importance of those standards were or are, and having to educate them really will set you back quite a bit. But that's something you bring to the table. We have to be, as assessors, we have to recognize these as challenges, and we have to take on the role of an educator and an advisor and a supporter of their learning. And as challenging as that might be, if the other person is not open to that, you know, there's always the IQA to help you in that regard. So I would recommend that if you come across that you do refer to the IQA for assistance. And that doesn't matter whether you're co-assessor, assessor, or lead assessor. I think we all find ourselves in that situation, or could find ourselves in that situation from time to time. The biggest lack I have found in terms of presentation is the lack of rigor in the process around appeals, complaints, and disciplinary committees, as well as code of conduct. Once again, you know, IMCs have said, well, we've never had a complaint, so we haven't bothered doing that. Well, how do you know you've never had a complaint if you don't have a process by which you can welcome those complaints, or you know, allow the client or the other consultant to lodge a complaint if you don't have that process in place? So this is, again, if we want to grow our profession, if we want to be seen as the consultancy of choice, then we need to have such things in place, because that's the only way that we can assure that there is protection of the client and protection of the consultant. Keeping records in the local language, we're getting better at that. We do require English is the language of the profession internationally, but we do recognize that local, as Christian pointed out, they just had the ISO standards translated into Portuguese, and I think it's important that you do have those records in your local language. Now with ChatGPT and other AI tools, that shouldn't be as difficult as it used to be. And lack of continuity and integrity when handing over functioning to a new team. I think it goes hand in hand with succession planning. You have to, no matter what your experience has been as an IMC, you have to be, practice some integrity when you're passing over that file, and keep it professional. When I've encountered IMCs that would not demonstrate that appreciation of the amount of work that their predecessor may have put into it, it's like you're starting from scratch. So again, you have to be the educator, you have to be the advisor, you have to be the supporter to ensure that the new team feels supported and that they know what they have to do going forward. I'm not sure I gave you anything that you haven't already encountered, but it's more about staying aware that these are things that can happen, and sometimes reading between the lines, taking your time, establishing that connection up front, and staying in touch, and just allowing them to confide in you, if you will, that there might be some other things that are impinging on the process, and not just that there might be that you think there's a lack of willingness or a lack of understanding. So I think that's one of the key ways of addressing the challenges. It's keeping an open mind and keeping the lines of communication flowing. That's all I have.
Thanks, Alice. Does anyone have anything they want to add to that? Okay, thank you so much. That's really helpful, and I'm sure we've all come across these.
I want to add something, Sue.
Okay, thanks, Christian.
Nothing new in what Alice has brought. I'm going to speak now as the IQA chair and not as a assessor. What we expect in the development of IQA is that we assess what is happening against a standard. So much of what Alice has said doesn't really match with what is expected formally from an assessor. On the other hand, we need to do that work because nobody else is doing it. The only contact and approach that they really have a little bit more profound with the community of ICMCI is through IQA when they go through the assessment. So yes, we need to act not only as an assessor or as an auditor, but we also need to guide them. We need to give some advice if necessary, and be comprehensive of their situation. Okay? Within the assessment team, the lead assessor has an enormous responsibility because he also needs to pull the co-assessor and show the co-assessor that the work is not only to be an auditor, and how this is being done, and what may the problems be with the IMC. Because they have a lot of problems. Many of them are struggling to survive, as Ads just pointed out. Okay? So we need to take the assessment in this more broad way, although within IQA, we need to be sure that we are auditors, because we need to be very thorough in the way we audit an institute. This is how we increase value to the CMC, by being strict, by being really going to the point and making the IMC evolve. And I've seen that. I've seen IMCs evolving because they took seriously what happened in their previous assessment. Okay? So, as a team, as assessors, now I'm going to speak as an assessor, okay? We have an enormous responsibility, and we need to understand that we are part of a greater team, not only of an assessor's team. We are a part of IQA that has its own responsibilities and has its own directions to follow. Till last year, the assessors were something that just conducted assessments. Now they are part of an institute. And this is something they were trying to develop through these meetings. Okay? There was one more thing I wanted to say. Oh yes, regarding all the other problems, that is that new administrations on the IMCs may not know what is happening, why it's happening. They may not even know why they belong to the ICMCI and what moved the Institute to be a member of ICMCI. So one of the things, and this is strategy that we are developing and we're going to develop starting January, is that IQA will try to work together with the membership committee and with the PDSC, the Professional Development Committee, to make a previous contact with IMCs, to make them aware of the importance of the assessment. This shouldn't be only the responsibility of IQA. This is also the responsibility of the membership committee and the professional committee, at least in our view. So expect that we will develop, I mean IQA, will develop better relationship with these two committees within ICMCI so that we can work together to make IMCs more aware of the importance and readiness to go through the assessment. Okay? That's all I want to add. Thank you. Sorry for the time.
No, thank you, Christian. I think it's also useful that obviously we've got more of Nick's ear now. Hopefully that will continue. And I have said to him many times now about the collaboration, and that's with the committees that Christian's just mentioned. So I think that's an ongoing challenge, but something hopefully that will happen over time. Okay, I've just got one more slide, and hopefully I can then give you back some time today. This is about future strategy. I've just done it as a list because this is really more in Christian's ballpark. But it's just a number of things that we will be working on. This is from the IQA perspective. So Christian, I'll go through it, but if you want to add something, that will be great. Recently, we've met with all members of IQA. So we're looking at roles and responsibilities so that we can assign some of these to our colleagues and maybe to form some task forces as well. I haven't added anything on the ISO 17011 internal audit today because I've nothing more to add at this time. We're still waiting for an internal audit, and the external audit remains a challenge for various reasons. We've got implementation of these elements as well. Risk, we've mentioned evaluation today. progress tracking, CPI, and capture and share of business practice. So there's a number of things there that we've got all the processes in place, but we now need to actively implement those. I also mentioned earlier with Nick the SDGs. Kalina's been having a look at this for us as well. So it's just how we now provide more emphasis on this when we're carrying out our assessments. Automation and tools. I know this is something we really need, and we're hopeful that we might be able to get some of this implemented, but we'll keep you posted on that. Document review and management, that's ongoing. Also, Nick mentioned about IQA independence, and we need to focus a bit more on understanding what that means and review the terms of reference accordingly. We know it's still called the QAC reference guide, and that's the central point of reference, if you like, for our IMCs and for ourselves. So that needs to be updated. We just need to ascertain ownership and who's going to do it, basically. Also further understanding, because in the competence framework, there are actually 3 levels: foundation, CMC, and profession leader. So what's going to happen with that? And that's, again, working with PDSC to understand that. Also, our approach for the future for ISO 17024, are we going to train our own IQA assessors? And also with UNIDO, I think there's a lot we need to understand about that and how that's going to work. And also how we capture information from reports, best practice, feedback for both ourselves, but also a lot of institutes come back with comments for ICMCI and how we forward that on. So that's the list. Quite a bit to do. I'm sure there'll be lots of other things to add. But Christian, obviously this is more in your ballpark than mine, but if you want to add anything or make some comments on that.
Well, we are here in 7 assessors, and probably, I don't know how many assessors participated on the previous meeting. I couldn't participate on Tuesday. I just want to send a message. You see that a couple of years ago, somebody said that we should use ISO 17011 as a reference and that we should comply with the requirements of ISO 17011. And I don't think that everybody was really aware of what that meant. It means basically that we need to be more professional in the administration of assessments, on how we do assessments, how we keep records, how we work, how we have our own standards, how we have our own procedures. And this is taking us a lot of time to develop this professionalism within IQA. And the guide is ISO 17011. But this means also that assessors that didn't feel that they were part of IQA, now they need to understand that they are part of IQA, that they also need to comply with ISO 17011 requirements. And one of those has to do with efficiency. That means that we need to develop and manage the assessment of the IMC within all the requirements and in a time frame. Assessors have an excellent excuse when they say, well, but we depend from the IMCs, and the IMCs, they not always, and Alice has made an enormous list of all the problems that lead assessors need to go over in many of the assessments. Meanwhile, this is no excuse for the lead assessors to try to make things happen in a timely way. So expect that we're going to put some pressure on that. And the 2024, in my point of view, I'm not saying it's a responsibility of the assessor. We started the program very late this year, but we haven't finished even one assessment yet. And it's 16 assessments that are going on, and we're already at the end of the year. So we will assign new assessments in February. So those that already have an assessment, they will have to deal with the old ones and the new ones. Of course, that many lead assessors may say, well, I don't accept it because I will not have time or whatever. But the thing is that we, as an institute, we have accepted the responsibility to deal with this and to work and deliver as expected by ICMCI. So I would say that we need the collaboration of all assessors to put in their minds that we are becoming a very much professional institute, although we are all volunteers. But this means that we need to take seriously whatever time we have already compromised for this task. And if you don't have time to compromise, then please say it ahead, because this will have an enormous impact in achieving our goals. So I have nothing else to say other than saying thank you for all lead assessors and all the co-assessors and all the assessors cohort for all their help and their values collaboration and how they invest their time in doing this, and ask all of you help so that we can become a more efficient institution, and we are more efficient in achieving our goals. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Christian. So I'm just looking at the chat. So we can just have a look at that. I don't think there are any questions there. Otto left us some comments here about complaints. So we'll take note of that. Okay, so thank you so much for your time today. It's been really great to see you. There will be a recording available of this session, which Ksema will kindly send out in the next few days, and also the session from yesterday if you're interested in seeing some of the feedback from some of the other assessors on that one. There will be, we're planning, as Christian said, we need to start earlier next year with our assessment. So the plan is to deliver training in February and then to start the assessments very soon after that. So that gives us a bit more time next year. So unless there's any further comments, I can give you back some time today. And thank you